Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says, "Hey dude, you too must be from Marin." Marin County's A-OK, from Tam to Stinson all the way to MA. Fresh organic veggies in the market every day. The Dennis, Dylan, and Tuck.
This is the Run TMC podcast. That is the Run the Marin County podcast about basketball in the Marin County. I am Duffy Ballard, and with me is Dave Levine, and this is season 2, episode 4. We're moving right along, Dave, and we will be releasing this on November 11th, Veterans Day. Dave, you are a veteran now of this podcast. What say you?
First of all, hot coffee today, Duffy.
Okay.
Remember I talked about the desire for fall weather, crispness in the air. I feel the crispness, and I thus fired up the kettle this morning and made myself some hot coffee.
Yeah, we had the first hint of petrichor just a week or so ago, David. I know we covered petrichor last season, but each fall season, the first time you come outside and there's been like a little bit of rain and you smell that smell of the wet earth, and it just kind of just invigorates you. And you're like, oh yeah, that's that smell after all those months of it being kind of dry and dusty. So petrichor is back. It was really nice to have it back.
And we have daylight savings, so it's getting darker earlier. And then most importantly, Duffy, we are wrapping up our first week of high school practice, both of us.
Good segue.
So thank you so much. That's why they pay me the big bucks on this podcast. So I'll start, and then I would love to get your perspective on the first week over at Archie Williams. But wrapping up our first week at San Domenico, my first week as a head coach, the message I keep giving my kids every day is something that I heard Chris Paul say one time, and giving advice to people and kids is just keep stacking days. And I love that. Just day by day, get a little bit better. And I can say that our practice Thursday, we were a lot better than we were on Monday. And so we're just stacking days and getting better. And it's been a lot of fun. How about you?
Well, first, I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea about your prior statement with regards to daylight savings. I will not equate petrichor and daylight savings time. I am not a fan of daylight savings time. I like a little bit sun and light in the afternoon. I would say that I often get a little depressed when it's getting dark at like 5, right? And like your opportunity to do things outside diminishes. So petrichor good, daylight savings time, not a fan. Anyway, Dave, but thank you for your question about practice. Yeah, I totally agree with that mentality of stacking days. And it's been a fun first week. We just finished up our tryouts. So we have our full varsity squad. We had our first full varsity practice last night. There's a lot of great energy in the room. We had total 5 coaches there. And Dave, we were working on some press. We want to play kind of fast this year and pressure the ball. And so we had coaches scattered around the floor, kind of picking individual defensive players to kind of coach verbally. So it was a good vibe, and we're making some progress. I will say also, Dave, that it was a real honor to have Coach Honick, friend of the podcast. Jonas Honick was there for all 3 days of tryouts. And by the end, Dave, he was already sort of tweaking our playbook. And so I suspect we'll have him back to help out more once we get into the season.
So for high schools now, we're all in the throes of it. And believe it or not, we're now getting into, I know, Duff, you guys have your first scrimmage tomorrow. Mm-hmm. As we've discussed previously, high school teams are permitted 26 games. In addition to that, they are permitted to have 2 scrimmages, which are obviously not real games. And you guys are playing tomorrow. My team, our first scrimmage is in a week at a multi-team scrimmage over in the East Bay. So, we just started, and all of a sudden we're going to be in a situation where we're going up against people who aren't on our team, and that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, jump right in. Yeah, we have a scrimmage versus Piedmont tomorrow morning. It's Saturday morning. This is going to come out podcast will come out on Monday. And that Piedmont was a team that knocked us out of NCS last year,
Right.
Dave, as you may recall, in the semifinals. And they played a really tough 3-2 zone that they would slide over towards Owen, wherever Owen was on the floor. They would sort of shift the zone a little bit to overstack it on his side. And so we were talking last night, what are they going to do tomorrow? Will we see that 3-2 zone? Or are they just going to, kind of see what they've got because they have a lot of turnover in their program? They lost, a couple of their top players. Will they play a lot of man-to-man, experiment with some stuff? The way these usually work, at least for us, Dave, is that you will play a quarter with refs and, keeping score, normal rules, but then you'll wipe everything clean at the end of quarter, and the scoreboard will go back to donuts, and then you'll start again and play either 4 or 5 quarters, and then you kind of try and work in your second team for portions of quarters and see how they look, maybe against the first team, maybe against the second team of the opponent. So a good way to just kind of experiment a little bit and see sort of what combinations of players might work well together once you get into the regular season.
Yeah, the approach to scrimmages differs, right, across coaches and programs. We're all competitive. You get in a situation where you're playing against a team that's not your team. You just instinctively want to win, but really the point of these scrimmages is exactly what you talked about, a chance to work on things, put kids in situations maybe they're not as comfortable with to see how they respond. I know we're in our multi-team scrimmage in a week, we're playing some really good teams, and I've got a bunch of new players who are new to varsity, and they're going to, I think, feel like deer in headlights at first, and that's good. We want to put them in situations where they're challenged and have to deal with some adversity, and we'll just stay positive and get better. So it's an exciting time. And then before we know it, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have real games. So the foundation games that we've talked about, which don't count towards the schedule, but are real games in terms of uniforms, referees, crowd, those are on November 26th. So the week of Thanksgiving. It's always I think it's the Tuesday, right? The Thanksgiving week. And so time is flying by, and here we are into the season. Let's go quickly to our sponsors, Duffy, and then we've got a few more things to cover before we hit this interview, which was awesome with our friend Natu. So first sponsor, Batiste Rum, our friend John Lawson. Batiste Rum is awesome. I've had it. You can purchase it at restaurants throughout Marin. I know La Toscana up in Terra Linda has Batiste Rum and some wonderful cocktails. Some of the restaurants in Mill Valley sell it. It's really good rum. It's made the right way. It's environmentally conscious. It's natural ingredients. It's really tasty. Batiste, Batiste rum. Thank you for being a sponsor.
And thank you, as always, to our friends at The Hub. And just to remind you, Dave, The Hub is at Red Hill Shopping Center in San Anselmo. You can drive into Red Hill Shopping Center if you need to go grocery shopping. You have some options there at the Safeway. If you need to go to the bank, there's a bank there. There's a pet food store. Look at this. We're kind of soliciting sponsorship from the entire shopping center. But then you can go and have dinner at The Hub, get a burger, get a fried chicken sandwich, a grilled chicken sandwich, great salads, great tap beer, great atmosphere. And if you'd like to, you could charge your electric vehicle right outside The Hub. And then finally, Dave, a new addition. I haven't been, but I've heard it's great. But there is a new Jewish deli in Red Hill, Bubbalas, I believe it's called. And I was told they have the best corned beef in the Bay Area. So more sponsorship opportunities.
Look at you just throwing out freebies stuff. Last but not least, Nike Camps at San Domenico. Thank you, Jeff Skaggs, for being a sponsor. There is a fall complete skills camp, November 25th to 27th. Coach Tyler Gaffney's running the show there. I say it almost every episode. I think one of the best, if not the best coach in Marin. So November 25th to 27th, look up, Google Nike Camps at San Domenico and get more information, but great opportunity to get some extra skill work in for kids who want it. And thank you, Jeff Skaggs and Nike Camps at San Domenico.
All right. And I just got note from the Skagger that they do have significant enrollment, but they're still looking for more campers for that week. So,
Beautiful.
And Dave, you will have to come watch my friend Russ Bauer coach at practice, and then we might have to have a conversation about best coach in the county.
I point well taken. Russ is unbelievable, and the parents of kids who have played for Russ, in addition to his Archie team, just rave about him. And Russ obviously is a good friend of ours, and he's a fun guy to play with. So we have an embarrassment of riches of great coaches in Marin. Duffy,
Yeah,
I would exclude myself from that list. Okay, let's talk about college basketball and local college basketball. Duffy, we reached out to some of the local colleges to get an update from them, and you've got an update on the men's side at Dominican, then I can give an update on the women's side. Go ahead.
Yeah, we thought we want to try and give previews or updates across all levels of basketball in Marin County as we get into the season. So we did reach out to the coaches at Dominican as well as College of Marin. We have not heard back yet from College of Marin coaches, but yeah, from Justin Arginal, who is the head coach for the men. So they look like they're going to be really deep and potentially very good. So they have 9 returners coming back, but they also had a really good recruiting class, Dave. So including their returners is one of the best point guards in the Pac West, Jaden Bush. That's spelled, catch this spelling, Jaayyden Bush. So apparently 2 years ago, he was a double-digit scorer and led the Pac West in free throw attempts as a true freshman, but had an injury last year and didn't really play. So they get him back as well as 8 other returners, and then they have a really good recruiting class that includes 2 Division I transfers that can play multiple positions. So it sounds like they're going to be deep and talented, be able to play a number of different types of styles of basketball. So high expectations for this team. Hopefully they have a great season. He says they open up this weekend at Sonoma State, so that they're actually playing today, Dave, on the 8th. And then again, San Francisco State tomorrow. And then their first home game, if you want to go catch a home game, great gym to see a game, is November 17th versus Cal State East Bay. So thank you, Justin, and go Penguins.
Awesome. And we got a message from our friend Tim Lacose, obviously a guest, season 1, one of our early guests, one of our early supporters of this podcast, an absolutely fantastic guy and a great coach. He sent us a message that he took his women's team from Dominican up to Canada, to British Columbia. They went 1-2, but played some really competitive teams, and they were in each game, and it was a great experience for the team. They also got to take in some of the unbelievable sights in beautiful British Columbia. I've been up there a lot, and it's absolutely gorgeous up there. They took in a hockey game and had some good team bonding. They now have a couple of good games coming up. They're playing Sonoma State and Chico State this weekend. By the time this episode comes out, they will have already played them. And then getting into next week, they start getting into some games with Fresno in a tournament, the Pac West Challenge. They have some good games coming up, and then they start getting into, more league games. So Tim's teams play at pace. You recall when we talked to him last year, he had some great responses to some of our questions where we're nerding out on X's and O's, and Tim just likes to keep it simple. Get the ball to his best player, get good shots from your best player, and it's funny, we talk about first week of practice, and one of the things I was going to put in my note to discuss today, Duff, was as a first-time head coach, I'm getting a little bit too in the weeds on X's and O's, I find. And sometimes you just got to keep it simple. And I've been thinking about Tim Lacose. It's more about players than it is about plays. And I think that Tim uses that philosophy. So go check out Dominican women's basketball.
Yeah, it's kind of like, Dave, it's kind of like what you said about Jim Harbaugh to Alex Smith. Just go out there and don't worry, just play. Right?
Just don't worry.
Yeah. Sometimes the X's and O's can cause players to worry, especially if that's not their strength. And then you don't necessarily get the best out of them because they're so preoccupied with whether they're going to run the play correctly or not that they don't actually play basketball. And I think you kind of know those, you can kind of sense those players on your team pretty early on. And I think really what you do is try and adjust the style when you have players like that so that you get the best out of them.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, Duff, let's get to, real quick, I want to acknowledge the Marin Athletic Foundation Hall of Fame banquet was this past week, and our friend Melissa Boyle was inducted. We saw her speech. It was incredible. She's an inspiration. And our friend Dan Dibley was the host, and he did a fantastic job. So I just want to acknowledge that we're really proud of Melissa Boyle for her induction. Much deserved.
Much deserved, yes. And we're going to talk with Dan Dibley next week, Dave, and we're going to get into this a lot more. So subsequent episode, we'll have more to say about that whole topic, Dave. But yeah, we're just very happy for Melissa, and she is just remains a very inspirational figure. And Dave, what time is it now?
Oh, I think it's dime time, Duff.
Dime time. Yes. So we have been dishing each other dimes all week, right, Dave? So first week of practice, we're kind of sorting out some drills. We're sorting out all sorts of stuff. And so a couple times this week, you've asked me for some details on drills that, you've seen before or you've done before. And then you've sent me some of the stuff you see Tyler doing, which we're in the process of incorporating into our practices. So we've been dishing dimes to each other this week. And I thought we would just focus for this segment on one that you used to do, a drill you used to do as a player, and a drill that we do all the time in our practices. And we did this week as the creator of the drill, Jonas Honeck, watched us do it. And it's called 2v2 passing, or as Russ Bauer calls it, UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship. And so it is a great drill, Dave, for teaching, number one, teaching ball pressure on defense, but probably its best function is to teach technique as well as calm under pressure as an offensive player. So it is a 2v2 drill that is only passing and cutting to space, and it's in a confined space. You pick a rectangle within one set of the volleyball lines, something like that, 15 feet by 25 feet or so, and there are a bunch of constraints, and there's a scoring system. Essentially, a scoring system is you only score on defense, and you score with a good defensive play. So, a turnover, a deflection, steal, whatever, a 5-second call, whatever it might be. And then on offense, the constraints are you only get one dribble, and you have to get the ball to your teammate in space. So it can't be like little dinky sort of 2-foot passes. You can't be like handing the ball off to each other the entire drill. You play for a very discrete and short amount of time, 45 seconds. You have coaches and players around this rectangle. You can do one rectangle at a time, or we often do two. So you have 8 total players in the drill at one time. And those other people on the outside of the drill, this is very important, Dave, they have basketballs, 2 or 3 basketballs, because what happens in this drill is it'll be an errant pass. The ball will go out, and you don't want those guys running after the ball. They have 45 seconds. The defense has 45 seconds to get as many points as they can. So that ball gets played directly back into the offense, and it resumes. So you might do 2 or 3 iterations of this with a break in between, and that's it. But I can tell you, you do this drill for a few weeks, a month, maybe, you see a measurable difference in your players and their ability to handle pressure. And in particular, just realizing that 5 seconds is a really long time to have the ball. And so you can assess the situation. You can wait. You can take your dribble to get the space, and you bounce pass it to your buddy, and you don't have to panic. So really, really great drill. I know Jonas's sort of philosophy on this is if you do this a lot in practice, Tom Poser's talked about this as well, you just throw as much pressure as you can at people in practice, then in the game, they're less likely to freak out if they get pressure.
Episode 1, Season 1, Mike Fulton discussed Jonas Honeck's philosophy of make the practice harder than the games so that the games are easy. Yeah. It was one of the first things that anybody said on this podcast. And this drill is a perfect example of that. And I texted you because I was getting ready for practice, and I wanted to do this drill with my San Domenico team, and I just couldn't remember some of the specifics. And I can tell you that of the times I remember from high school practices, I remember vividly Coach Honeck saying, all right, 2-on-2 passing, and me thinking, oh, crap. This drill is hard. And it's not, look, it's a great drill. It's fantastic. It is physically the most challenging drill I remember from playing basketball, because it is absolutely 45 seconds or a minute or however long you run it of 100% intensity and exertion. It's like boxing. I mean, it's just absolutely, UFC is a perfect name for this drill. So fantastic drill. I recommend all coaches at all levels do it. You could do it with 4th graders. You can do it with college kids. it's a great drill. It just teaches you how to handle pressure, and then on defense, how to get in passing lanes and be aggressive and just compete. It's just all about competing. It's a great drill. So thank you, Duff, for giving me the info. I used it last night. We're going to do it again tonight, and a very good description of it.
How did it go? What was like your a high score for your defense?
Well, I only did it for 30 seconds with our squad as an intro, but we got a few like fours and fives. So some deflections, some people stepping out of bounds. But really on offense too, it's a good message. I'm trying to get our post players to learn they can take a dribble to create space and pivot and be strong, right? So sometimes kids forget that they can dribble. Sometimes kids dribble all the time. So this is a perfect happy medium, right? You want to take one dribble, create space, pivot, get low, create space, and then you can complete a pass. And it's a great message.
Yeah, and a very intentional dribble. And what sometimes you see when people first start doing the drill is they'll catch the ball and they take a dribble, but they won't do anything with that dribble. Now they've lost the dribble. Like maybe will move a foot. And the other thing you see a lot, and I think actually an alteration to scoring I would propose for this drill is a guy will catch the ball, a player will catch the ball, and they'll curl up and try and protect the ball with their back to the defender. And that's not what we want. That's not the purpose of this drill. The purpose of this drill is to catch it, rip through, create some space, face up. And so I would propose to Jonas and to Russ and to you that if you don't square up when you catch the ball, that's negative. That's a point for the
negative points. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Great drill. Thank you, Duff. So let's get into the introduction to our guest today. This guy would have been really good at this drill.
Yes, he would. And he probably would still be very good at this drill.
Still good at it. I don't want to do this drill against Natu. So Natu Tuatagaloa is our guest. He is a very well-known figure in Marin, a very prominent figure, a leader in a variety of different facets. So I'll try to. He has a really impressive background. I'll try to be quick here. So basically, Natu grew up in San Rafael. His parents are first-generation immigrants from Samoa and the Netherlands. He credits them with instilling strong family values and work ethic and determination. He's a San Rafael public school kid. He grew up, he went to Glenwood, he went to San Pedro, he went to San Rafael High, as we mentioned, graduated in 1984 as a 4-sport varsity star. He did football, hoops, boxing, and track. He went on to play college football at the University of California at Berkeley. Duffy, we also call that school Cal. This is back when Cal was in the Pac-10. He was a 4-year letterman and 3-year starter as a defensive lineman for Cal. He played for some amazing coaches. We talk about this in our interview. He was all Pac-10. He graduated from Cal with a bachelor's degree in history. He was drafted into the NFL by the Cincinnati Bengals in the 5th round. He played 6 years in the NFL for a variety of teams. We go into his NFL experiences in detail in this interview. It was a lot of fun. I should say, back to San Rafael High, he was a great basketball player and played for Bret Tovani. And Bret Tovani talked about Natu a lot when we had our conversations with Bret last season. And in some of those teams that Natu played on in the early 80s, Bret mentions that's kind of where Bret learned how to really coach. It was during this period when he was coaching guys like Natu. Since his playing career in the NFL ended, he's been a leader in Marin. He joined the Rotary Club. He was very involved in the Marin Athletic Foundation Hall of Fame. He was on the board of directors of that organization for many years, including being president. He was on the San Rafael Board of Education. So he's been a leader in the community, as well as obviously one of the rarefied air as a NFL player and pro athlete. So we had a really fun time talking to him. He's a really smart, thoughtful guy. And he and his wife, Judy, still reside in San Rafael. They have 3 daughters, 2 grandkids. He's a great guy. We're really lucky to have had this chance to talk to him.
Yeah, I think we mentioned early on that the theme of this episode is excellence in athletics and community. And I'd say, in addition to that, Dave, that Natu just oozes wisdom. I mean, there's just, when you're around him, just in our conversation, I just felt like I gained a lot from his perspective and his experiences and the way he was able to articulate them. And he is a beast on the basketball floor. What an athlete! And we talk about it a little bit, but we used to play against each other and with each other at the Y. And he describes his favorite move as the get you in the paint, seal, crab, dribble, finish. And I have been victimized by that in the past, Dave. So this was a great conversation.
Sounds good. Good to see you, Duff, and enjoy this discussion with Natu. It was great.
I will, and you too.
All right, we're going. Natu, great to see you.
Great to see you guys as well.
Hi, Natu.
Pleasure.
So, Natu, we already gave our listeners your extensive bio, which is amazing. So, instead of me droning on for 7 minutes about you, let's just get into having you talk. So, we're going to get into, all of your experiences as an athlete, but Duffy's really good about wanting us to have a theme for these interviews. I tend to just kind of drone on and ask questions wherever the conversation goes, and Duffy's always like, focus. Let's think of a theme. So, our theme for you, Natu, is excellence in athletics and community. There aren't many people that can say they played Division I athletics at a high level, and there are very few people in the world who can say they played professional athletics. And you were an NFL star for 6 years. You had an incredible career at Cal. So excellence in athletics, but then post-career, you've had a huge impact on the community, and you give back. And so that's our theme for this. So let's jump right in. Marin Athletic Foundation. We love the Marin Athletic Foundation, the Hall of Fame. We've had a few members as guests on our podcast, right? Fulton, Daryl, Rory. Very excited that Melissa Boyle, our recent guest, has just been nominated this year. You've been actively involved in that organization for many years, right? You were the president for what?
Over 10 years, I believe.
Yeah.
12 years, something like that. I took over for Mike Daly.
Yep.
Who was a longtime athletics person, great basketball player at Drake.
Yep.
And with the probation department here in Marin. Yeah, the foundation is a wonderful entity that gives back to the high school students of Marin. And one of the things that people don't realize, it was started quite some time ago, in 1988. And it was started by a group of people in the community who really loved athletics. And they felt like the public schools were starting to not give money to the athletic departments. They felt like there was a shortfall. And I think if you look at education budgets in general, what do? The first thing they cut? Sports, music, art, because they want to focus on other things in the classroom, the 3 R's, so to speak. And so people were a little worried about that, and they wanted to raise money. And at the same time raising money, they wanted to recognize the athletes of the past in terms of the Hall of Fame. So a group of gentlemen put it together, Rich Nave, Mario Gelati, Gary Frugoli, bunch of other great, past athletes.
Yeah.
And so that's when it started. Glenn Robinson was the original president. I joined the board in, I believe, 2001, and I was there till 2019 when I retired from that board. I was lucky enough to be nominated and inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2004.
Yep.
It's a great organization. They have a great golf tournament that raises money. They run the Hall of Fame program. They used to do a bocce tournament. And there's like an annual membership that people can pay every year, donate money, and that money goes right back to the high schools. And over time, the mission had changed, right? At the beginning, it was, let's give the athletic departments a bunch of money,
right,
and they can do whatever they want. And I think with today's world, we wanted to focus more on health, wellness, injury prevention. And those are the things that we want the high schools to spend their money on. So, and also over time, we've expanded it from just the public schools to include the private schools as well, so that they can also get recognized. Because there have been some great athletes that have come out of the private schools like Branson and Marin Academy.
Sure.
San Domenico as well.
Yep.
And we have the Outstanding Student Athlete Award, which is great. A couple of kids from each school, male, female. Sometimes there's more than one if there's twins that have done great. We've had that.
Right.
And that's an incredible opportunity for the kids and families to be recognized for their achievements, not only on the field, but in the classroom. And of course, it's a great way for everybody to connect every year, at least once a year, off the field or the pitch or the court.
Yeah.
Say hello and shake a hand. And the thing that I think I like the most about it is one of the requirements is the kids who are awarded they get to get up and say something, right?
Right.
It's kind of a have to thing. They have to say a little speech.
A little public speaking.
Yes. And as you know, public speaking isn't for everyone. And some kids are super shy and they grind through it. Other kids are absolutely out of their minds incredible. I mean, kids tell stories about the things that they've gone through. They always thank their coaches and their teachers, and they thank their parents, of course.
Yeah.
And some of them go beyond, where they thank their special needs brother or sister that went along the way and show them that, they thought they had it tough, and there you go. Every day's tough for them. stories like that really touch you. And I think, and they, sometimes they bring a lot of lightheartedness to it as well. So it's a great experience. So I think my time with the foundation was very valuable for me.
Yeah.
I also think that working with the colleagues on the board there and the advisory board is, been a very fulfilling experience. And I'm still on the advisory board today. I still participate in the golf tournament every year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I do much else other than talk about how great it is to be a part of it and what good stuff the foundation does for the community.
So in addition to that, thank you, by the way, for that. That was
Yeah.
fantastic. And I encourage everybody to look more into the Marin Athletic Foundation Hall of Fame. Our friend Dan Dibley is going to host the dinner again this year. Yes, Duffy.
Has a podcaster or podcasting team ever been nominated?
Yeah, that's kind of why we wanted to have you, Natu. We wanted to pitch ourselves here.
Yes, well, you guys could be up for the special recognition category for the MCAL Hall of Fame. I think it would take a few more years, but yeah, you get there. We've done that before. We have had media personnel inducted for all their great work, whether it's taking pictures or writing articles. Just being part of the Marin County athletic scene is a really big deal. And I think you guys are off to a great start, especially being the first of the basketball podcasts here.
We got to keep it up, Dave. We got to keep it up.
Well, guys,
Yeah.
I mean, I did score 3 points a game in high school, so I don't like to talk about that, but
You average more fouls than points. We know that. We've covered that.
Probably.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about the foundation is, while I'm on the advisory board, I'm also now on the Hall of Fame committee, which is a separate committee that talks about athletes of the past who are nominated every year,
Yeah.
and then votes who gets in and who's worthy of being in
Well,
the Hall of Fame.
we're-
And that process for me is only 2 years old, so I'm learning a lot there. I'm understanding how it works, what the dynamics are, understanding all the people in the room and how it's done. And it's another thing that you have to learn. You have to kind of understand how it works, and then you figure out what's the best way to approach it in terms of bringing your value, your experience, your knowledge. And one thing that it really does for me is it makes me want to really tune into the athletes that were, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Who were the best athletes back then and what was going on in Marin County at the time? And then paying attention to today. Like I give a big shout out to the IJ. I mean, their local sports coverage is pretty good. I'm really happy that coaches and or parents or someone is giving them the information they need to get out the kind of the local vibe of local sports. And it really makes you want to tune in. And I think everyone who has either a youngster in Marin or has, high school, they should all be getting the IJ electronically, and they should be reading the sports every day and really understanding what's going on out there. And it's not just football, basketball, baseball, right? There's great track athletes, cross country athletes, water polo athletes. I mean, the list goes on. It's a really incredible place, especially for a small county in California.
Had a few Olympians this year.
It's absolutely amazing because those kids, I mean, I coach some of those kids with Mike Dibley in basketball, CYO, and they're incredible.
Yeah.
Seeing them now.
Yeah.
And I see them at the local market, Andy's Market, and they're just towering over me.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That's great. Well, I want to come back to because in addition to Hall of Fame, you've been on the Board of Education. I mean, you've done a ton in the community, but I'd like to now kind of shift gears a little bit and go back to the early days of Natu. So grew up in San Rafael, right? You played, we're going to get to your San Rafael High days. You played 4 sports at San Rafael High. So when you were young, when did you know you wanted to be a pro athlete? When you were a kid, did you have a dream of being a pro athlete?
Yeah, I think early on when I was very young, I really wanted to be a football player. I mean, I was a football player for Halloween every year.
Were you always big?
No, I wasn't. That's a great story. We'll get to that. But I was pretty average, if not small, growing up. And I wasn't the biggest, nor the fastest, nor the strongest, but I did have a pretty good attitude about wanting to be successful and win at the time.
Yeah.
And I was a pretty sore loser as a kid. I didn't like to lose.
Competitive.
Very competitive.
Yeah.
How would that manifest?
Well, if you lost, you could, throw things or want to beat the other guy up or things like that. Or
Did you
swear.
Did you have brothers, sisters?
I'm an only child, but I was raised with 4 cousins. So they're considered my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And we played a lot outside, which is what we miss a little bit today. But we did everything outside. We weren't allowed inside the house during the day.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun playing all the games you could think of that you would play outside, besides tag and riding your bike and, throwing the ball at each other, things like that. A lot of fun growing up. But it's really about, that competitiveness that you kind of grow up with where you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
The sports, when I was young were, we had Little League Baseball, we had flag football, but I always wanted to be a football player. I mean, I can remember my first Halloween costume, my official one that I picked out was a Bob Greasy Miami Dolphins little plastic thing that I had to put on. And then every year I wanted to be a football player. And then I was playing Pop Warner football and I just wear my uniform right after practice and go out there and get some candy with my Pop Warner uniform on, which is pretty cool. So, and I think also back then, if you remember those days, the big show was Monday Night Football. Right?
Of course.
So, and we got something that the kids don't have today, which is the TV guide, right? So a little magazine that showed you what was on TV.
Yeah.
And Monday Night Football was in there every week. And you could see the roster of the players and you could see who they were and where they were. And I used to say to myself, I want to be, 6'6" and 280 pounds, and that's what I'm going to be. And I used to sit in the shower and get on my tippy toes and I'm going to do it. Right. And those are dreams when you're a kid.
Yeah.
So that was really kind of a big deal for me at the time, but it kind of bleeds over to everything else that you do, right? You want something so bad.
Yeah.
And yet there's a lot of distractions in different sports, different things going on. So you kind of pick and choose your times, right? When are you going to be the football player and when are you going to be the basketball player and when are you going to be the track guy? When are you going to be the boxing guy?
So when did basketball come into the picture for you?
Well, as you mentioned, you had played for St. Sylvester's CYO.
Yeah.
I think all of our kind of recreational basketball in our elementary schools was fun, not very organized.
Yeah.
I never got picked first. I mean, I was picked last pretty much on the basketball team. We were doing that. Kids were a lot better in terms of skills because they had practiced. Then I started playing CYO and, always played on the B team, right? Never made the A team.
All the way through?
All the way through.
Okay,
And
just
then,
hold on.
yeah.
Not to. Kids, this guy played in the NFL, was all Pac-10 defensive lineman, and he was on the B team throughout. So
Yeah,
continue not to.
It gets better than that, right? So I'm in the B team, CYO, and I'm learning how to play with others.
Yeah.
And learning how to control my, whether you call it anger or competitiveness. I'm trying to learn how to deal with that out on the court because I'm, either you're not getting to play enough, or then when you do play, things don't go your way.
Yeah.
You learn a lot of lessons on the ball field and on the court and things like that. So I think for me it was a great experience because I learned a lot of things not to do. Right? Like you can't yell at the refs, right? You can't throw the ball at the refs. You can't do things like that. And then, here comes high school and I go out for the freshman basketball team like everybody else did.
At San Rafael High.
At San Rafael High. Bud Smith and Mr. Dugdale, they were my coaches.
Yep.
And we were doing a drill and, I get matched up with Andy Salvis, who's one of the best players that I had ever played with in basketball ever. He played as a sophomore under Bret, junior, senior, and he was our best player in my senior year at San Rafael High School. But he and I as freshmen get matched up together. It's the, defend the rim layup drill. And for whatever reason, something had happened on my side of the court where I was distracted and then I turned around and he had already left for the bucket. So immediately, that competitiveness and kind of anger kicked in. And instead of going for the ball, I basically just tackled him right under the hoop into the wall. And the coach was not happy. And because of that, he cut me from the team.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't get to play freshman year and I had to wrestle. So I wrestled with Rich Duff was our stud wrestler at the time. And he's a state competitor, and his brother Leonard Duff was the coach. And it was a new experience for me because wrestling, of course, is a lot of technique, a lot of hard work, a lot of push-ups, and a lot of sweating, and then going to tournaments. You're on the mat for the first time. I mean, I think the first match I won, I was so happy that I won the match. And Leonard Duff came over and said, you just wrestled the guy. He only had one leg. And he tried to make a joke out of it, but it was something, right? You learned something there about yourself. And I had a good group of guys that I had, done wrestling with, that I learned a lot from.
Yeah.
And we were all, I was a freshman. I was 5'10", 130 pounds.
So how about football as a freshman? Did you go out for varsity? Did you try?
No, I think at that point in time, I was still pretty small. Yeah. The one good thing was because I played Pop Warner football, I had a lot of experience. So I knew how to play. I knew what contact football was. I think overall, that first year was a good year for me because I played a bunch of different spots, right? I played quarterback. We had 3 quarterbacks and I was one of the 3. I also played on the defense, linebacker and deep back. So, I got a little bit of experience as a kind of a smaller type player. Again, 5'10", 130 pounds, pretty small.
Yeah.
And then, as you get older and grow, you have to kind of change your positions as you see fit. And I think that happened to me in high school, especially with some good coaching.
Well, let's let you perfect segue. I wanted to talk about your coaches. Obviously, we've hit on Tovani a lot, but I want to stay on football for a minute here. And I want to talk about your coaches, but then also just set the stage for 1980s MCal football, because we talk a lot about the basketball back in that day, right? And today we think of football, Marin Catholic. Well, first of all, there's no MCal football anymore, right? Now they've changed the leagues, but Marin Catholic and San Marin have been pretty dominant in football in the last 10, 15 years. In the 80s, what was the football landscape like in Marin?
I would say that San Marin has always been pretty strong because they've always had a great feeder program from the Pop Warner days. Myself, I played Pop Warner, in San Rafael, and my last year, that 8th grade year, they had collapsed 4 or 5 different teams into one. So you had the San Anselmo kids that ended up at Drake. You had the Terra Linda kids that went to Terra Linda. You had the Redwood kids that ended up. So we all played together that last year in 8th grade, which was really great because then that freshman year, the best players in the league were all the guys I played against and played with in Pop Warner. We had, Bobby Voles from Redwood. We had Glenn Richardson and Britt Johnson from Drake. We had, Frank Peterson from Terra Linda. He went to Marin Catholic. Doug Freilich and Bob Paps. These guys were all, these guys were great players in high school, and we all played Pop Warner together. So it's kind of cool to see that happen.
That's great.
So the league at the time, I think San Rafael was always strong, and San Marin was always strong. And then my senior year, let's go back, my freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, I think we were always in that 1 or 2 spot, somewhere in there. And I watched guys like Anthony Ross, AJ Ross play with the older kids when I was a freshman. Those teams were unbelievable. The way that they ran the ball and ran the option, and they were great. But they also had to play against teams like San Marin that also had great players like Brad Muster, etc.
Who played at Stanford and in the NFL.
Yeah, I've been playing against Brad Muster since I was in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Right. He's been that guy, right? You try to follow him around.
Right.
Right. Always hard to bring down, tall, fast. Didn't seem like he ever broke a sweat, and you could never get a good hit on him, right? He always seemed to slide one way or the other and then get 2 more yards because he was so tall when he fell down. But the league at the time, I think those teams were, again, and my senior year was the first year Marin Catholic won the MCAL, and they had a great team. They had some incredible players. They had Stuyvesant at quarterback. They had Ken Greco at running back. They had Gaten Ingracia on the offensive line, and I think it was Dave Pelfini as well. They had some really good players. Murphy was there too. He was a great receiver. They played really well, and they had great coaches. And what's funny about that is, they had Gondola as a coach, and they had Paul Camara as a coach, and Paul Camara coached me in Pop Warner. So I knew that team, no matter how physically fit or tough they were going to be smart because Paul Camara would make them smart. He did all the scouting. He put together all the plays. He was a master of putting together an offense and how you should run it. And that was back in Pop Warner. So I knew they'd be tough, and they were tough, and they won the league. I think when we played them, over there in Kentfield. It was a little bit of a rainy day. I think we gave them a short field 3 or 4 times in that game. I think that game was actually televised, and I've tried my best to do as much as I could, not only from the defensive line spot, but they put me in the backfield. I think I scored a touchdown that time. Played middle linebacker, trying to get them stopped. It was a pretty vigorous, tough game for me personally, because I felt like, there's only so much you can do. Right. But that's the way it goes, right? You learn that it doesn't matter how hard you play. Sometimes your best isn't good enough. And it's not just about you, your teammates, you all got to come together. So I think I think you learn more about things when you lose, or when you have, we always used to say, look, you only remember the bad plays, right? Because those are the ones you have to learn from and get better.
Of course. So you got this unique experience as you played high school, college, pro. You've played for a bunch of different coaches. So go back to staying on football again. You're a high school coach in football. What was his style like, and compare that to Tovani? I mean, we got a good sense for what Tovani's style was like.
Yeah, so I think there's a thing that's very in vogue today, which is the Positive Coaching Alliance.
Yes.
Right? So my coaching staff, which is Bob Muster, Dave Wiley, those guys, they believed in that right? They went to Stanford, they went and saw the program, and they really believed in how to turn things around from browbeating kids down into doing things, into making things positive. And I think for me, it was a great transition because I caught it right at the right time, right in the beginning when it was fresh.
Yeah.
And we had a great opportunity to be much better than we were because of it. And those coaches did a great job. I had, Bob Muster's son Clay, he was my JV coach. So he was, once they coached JV, they'd come up to the next level during the games. So that was good to have some consistency there. We had Phil Avila running the deep back coach. We had a bunch of volunteers. We had a Mr. Nelson, I believe we called him our super scout. So he was out there scouting teams, giving us all the info.
Yeah.
So the program itself was pretty good. I would say that we had some really good players too. And of course, when you want to be successful out there, it's players making plays, right? It's not really the coaches set it up for you and they call the plays, but still players got to make plays. And I think we did a pretty good job of it overall. And there were some times we fell down, but we had a good time with it. And the coaching style, when you say, what's it like?
Yeah.
Well, again, that transition from the browbeating and hard-nosed coaching to the positive, it didn't mean the expectations went down. We still had this thing called Burma Road on Mondays, which was brutal, right? You're running the entire length of the field. You're hitting bags.
Yeah.
You got to run in a kind of like a zigzag pattern, and then you got to run back. And it takes its toll on you, right? The one thing that was good was that they realized that hydration was important for high school athletes. So we got to have some water then, right? Not like back in the day where you couldn't touch the water.
Right.
So we had still, vigorous practices, high expectations, fast moving practices where it wasn't boring. Kept us very safe out there with great hydration and people, trainers and things like that when they were around. It wasn't like a mandatory thing.
Yeah.
But good rules out there. Things like don't put your helmet on the ground, right? Hold your helmet, because what happens when you put your helmet on the ground, something comes your way, you're leaving, but your helmet stays on the ground. Then that can cause an injury. Little things like that. Paying attention, always standing back behind. So some ground rules out there kept people safe. But I think overall, the intensity of the practices, the knowledge of the coaches, the fact that they deeply cared about each individual player and how to get the best out of them. I mean, Bob Muster knew that if he came to me and said something, he knew I would do it, right? And he knew he could hold me accountable and he wasn't going to hurt my feelings. Right. So those are important things to know. And you can't do that with all kids, right? Some kids, you do that and they go in the tank, right? And I wasn't one of those kids. I was one of those kids that if you got on me, I would give you my best every time.
We talk about it a lot on this podcast. Duffy and I talk about it all the time about treat kids equally, not fairly. Sorry, fairly, not equally.
Yeah.
Right. What works for you doesn't necessarily work for Joe.
Yeah.
Right. So be fair to each of them.
Right. And it starts with that culture of care, right? You have to care about the player, number one. Then you have to get to know him, number two.
Yeah.
And then you have to decide as a coach or a teacher or a mentor or whatever, you have to decide, how are you going to get this person, this player, to do the things that you want him to do? What's the right avenue? I think it's, Bret was a very soft-spoken individual to me, but the words that he said had great meaning and great power, right? So when he told me, as I'm sitting on the bench one time after literally pushing another player on the court, a bigger player than me actually, and he took me out, put me on the bench, he let me sit there and gas off for a minute, and he walked over and he knelt down in front of me. He says, if you ever do that again, you're not going to play for me. Just like that.
Yeah. Didn't need to yell.
Nope.
Just
didn't need to yell.
Yeah.
Didn't need to make an example of me in front of anybody else.
Right.
Just had the one-on-one right there on the end of the bench, and it was enough. Right. And again, that's part of growing up. Right. And for Bret, I was a project. I mean, he'll tell you. I mean, when I first started with him, I don't think he knew what to do with me other than I was aggressive.
Yeah.
Hardworking.
How big were you in high school?
My junior year, I was like 6'2", 190.
Okay.
Maybe 200. I mean,
so on the basketball court, what position were you playing? Like forward?
I was playing center.
Center. All right.
Yeah, I was playing center, and we had some great players on our team as well. Like I said, Andy Salvis, he was fantastic. We had Todd Farber, who's also played as a sophomore for Bret. We had Todd Whitman, who was a perennial athlete all the way around too. He was a junior. We had Phil Champeau as a senior. We had some good guys. We had the Krieger brothers, who both were, Greg Krieger was a man-child in 5th grade, and he was that good in high school. Tough, strong. I mean, he was built like a truck and could run, right? And his brother Mark was kind of the same, only taller and a little bit more athletic. I mean, we had some really good people to play with and to learn from and get better from. And I think for me, it was about, how am I going to make this work? It was, I didn't know what I was doing. My freshman year, I get cut. My sophomore year, I'm on the team. I think because Coach Bracken was the coach and he's friends with my parents, he kept me on the team. I didn't play in any game at all until the last game of the year. I get in at the end and it's like a fast break or something. I can't remember what the circumstances were, but I find myself alone on the other side of the court, and Todd Farber throws me the ball, and somehow I caught it and scored, and that was the only time I scored the whole year. So it was pretty funny how that happened. In my junior year, am I going to make the team? That was the big question.
So, but by your junior year, are you now thinking, okay, I'm going to play college football? Like at that point, are you on the path to being a Division I?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So my junior year, I play only one way on the varsity team.
Okay.
But I'm having as a junior, I'm having some success out there. I'm getting to play a lot. I'm making some good headway. And what I noticed was Coach Muster, he at the time was going through the recruiting process with his son Brad. So I got the advantage of watching that whole process go at the same time that I was a junior. And what he did is he had sent out a bunch of cards and letters to teams, and then they would send stuff back every year. And they'd always send an inquiry about, do you have anybody, et cetera.
Sure.
And so I started getting all these letters and applications about, height and weight and school and all that. And I thought, wow, if you get one letter, I think you're pretty happy. Right. And I started getting letters all the time from many different places all over the country, all the armed forces, things like that, just to see if there was any kind of an interest. And back then, people didn't get a lot of film. Back then it was, they had to show up and watch you play.
Right. There's no huddle.
Right.
And this is your junior year.
This is my junior year. Yeah. These things started to happen. And it kind of progressed into my senior year where now people were coming to watch the game and see how I played. There was a little bit better film back then. I don't know that the college coaches got to see it.
Yeah.
But, I became a little bit of this guy might have a chance to play. There's some potential there. And I think it was really about potential, right?
I was going to ask, how dominant were you in the MCAL? Are coaches looking at, okay, Natu's getting 5 sacks a game, or is it, okay, you see something in this guy that there's the potential for him to be molded into a real...
Yeah, I think it was the latter. I mean, I wasn't having 5 sacks a game. I definitely was playing good football, but I was on the field the entire time. The only time I came off was for kickoff.
Okay.
Right. So I played the whole game all the time. I was always around the ball. No matter if it was on one side of the field or the other, I was always running to the ball. I was forcing things on the field to happen. We played really well as a team. So I stayed in my lane and did my job. I wasn't going outside the box, as some people say. I wouldn't guess out there.
Yeah.
But I think those are important things to know, that being a good teammate and playing hard is really the difference between what I was doing and maybe what some other players in the league were doing.
Yeah. Both for yourself, but also more broadly, the difference between being a difference maker in football on either side of the ball and basketball. It seems like, one great basketball player, LeBron James, can make a team, right? And maybe you could say that about a quarterback on the football field, but they still need everything else to go really well. So, both from your own perspective, like as a player, how you might change a game on the football field versus how you might change the game in a basketball game.
Yeah, so for a football player like myself who was playing defensive line primarily to be a game changer, it was third down. That's the game changer, right? Or it's a running play that you knock the ball loose. You can change the game with that, right? And it happened a few times. Very lucky for me that, the guy wasn't holding on the ball very much, or I got there and sacked him, something like that, creating a turnover. That's, you can do those things as an individual player. In basketball, it's definitely different. I think if you're a great basketball player, you've got an opportunity to really take over the game.
Right.
I think that you can, depending on who you are, along with your supporting cast, be that guy and really change the whole level of the game. I mean, you guys have talked about people like, Bucky Chavez, Eddie Joe Chavez, right? Walt Gillespie, right? These guys, I mean, these are people that I played with in Tovani ball, right? After school, played with and against.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're incredible. And they're in their, they're a lot much older than me, but they were,
right.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times Eddie Joe hit me in the face with the ball, right? Because I just wasn't looking. he's throwing no-look passes, and I'm just getting pummeled under the rim. Like, okay, now one time's enough, right? But it happened all the time.
Yeah.
But guys like Pat Sandel, right? I played with him too.
Legend.
I mean, these guys are incredible basketball players. So when you say, can one guy take over the show? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as they have a good supporting cast, basketball IQ, working hard, playing great defense. I mean, you can be super successful with having that one guy that can really do it.
So Tovani
Or
ball.
girl.
So talk about Tovani ball.
It's one of my favorite things. I mean, during high school, I didn't get to play much Tovani ball because I was on the other teams, playing, doing track or boxing or whatever, something else.
For sport athlete.
Right. So you're busy doing those things. But after high school, I was able to play some Tovani ball. And when I was, in the pros and after the pros, I was able to play Tovani ball. And playing with Bret and Steve Woodward and, Bobby Mack and Mike Parno would come down too, and Haas Parno sometimes. And then you had the stars, right? You had the Pat Sandals, you had the Eddie Joe Chavez guys. And it was something special. I mean, I had an incredible time. And the thing for me that was so great was I remember the days where, I'd get up, I'd take my oldest daughter to school, I'd go to the YMCA, I'd work out, I'd play lunchtime basketball, and then I'd go and grab lunch, I'd take a nap, and then I was at Tovani ball. And that was the day, right? And after Tovani ball, then go pick up the kids at daycare and then go on with your day, right? I mean, those were the perfect days to be able to do all that in one whole day, get 2 sessions of basketball in.
Yeah.
And it kept me in incredible shape, right? Basketball definitely made me a better athlete. It super challenged me because I wasn't that good. I mean, the guy, if you talk to some of my teammates, they'll tell you, no, he really wasn't that good. He just worked hard and then yelled at all.
Well,
of us,
you were competitive.
right?
So Jet Russell, we had Jet and Will on, and we texted Jet. Duffy texted Jet and said, "Hey, give us some Natu questions." And he said, "You would crush people in Gym 2 pickup games, like when you came back and played against the high schoolers."
Yeah.
And he said you were awesome, but that you were physical and competitive.
Yeah.
And so discuss when you're talking about these games, like playing against the high schoolers, how did you approach that?
Well, first you have to think about, number one, you want to set a good example for the kids.
Exactly.
Right. And then number two, you don't want to get hurt, right? Or hurt anybody.
Right.
And number three, you want to win. I mean, let's just be clear. We're out there to win. I don't know that I never let anybody win, especially my kids. But for those games, I never let any of those high school teams ever win. Sometimes they did win because they were good. I mean, playing against Mike Ravelli, it's crazy.
He's going to make some shots. Yeah.
Mike Ravelli, Dustin Brown,
Sure.
Will Venable.
Yeah.
There's a whole host of kids that played. Bill Archer. I mean, there's a whole host of kids that played that were younger than me that were far superior to me in terms of basketball, not just IQ, but also ability. But for me, what was so great was the fact that you had these old guys who were out there running up and down the court. And I mean, Bret would shoot his shots, right? He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But he also knew how to get the work in. So we used to run a play in high school called Oregon State, and they'd dribble over to the wing and they'd pass me the ball at the baseline and I'd go to work, right?
Right.
And he'd do it.
Yeah.
He'd run that play on his own. He knew I loved it because I'd start up at the high post. He'd start dribbling. I go down the low post. I do a little spin and lock somebody out. Boom.
Yeah.
No one's getting around me.
I got the seal.
I got the seal. I got the ball. He'd bounce pass it into me.
Yeah.
And I would do the famous, drop step crab dribble layup.
Yeah.
And I made a living out of that. I mean, Bret taught me that move in my junior year, and it took me a whole year to perfect it. In my senior year in high school, that was my move.
That's
and
cool.
I either scored or went to the line.
Yeah.
Right. Which was great for us. Right. And so I did that in Tovani ball.
I've seen that move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Duff knows that move from the Y. So
Another thing that Jet mentioned as we're kind of talking about this era where you're playing pickup against kids is the early morning conditioning that Bret would do with the team. So Jet called it 3 weeks of hell in the fall, like right around now.
Yep.
Right. Where 6 a.m. workouts, track workouts, it's dark outside. And he mentioned that you would show up to those sometimes.
Yeah, I would just come and see because, I think that Bret had this way of really trying to understand who was going to play and who's going to make it, who's going to commit.
Yep.
Number one, you had to show up early, right? That's hard for some kids, right? And then number two, you're running like you got, and the goal was to make a 6-minute mile, which is no joke.
Ouch.
I mean, that's a tough one. And you're tired and you're sore. And I think his idea of trying to figure out who was going to stick really worked. I mean, you guys talked to Dave Deneen.
Oh, of course.
His experiences of, guys are up there running one day, running 2 days, running 3 days, and the numbers just go from like 30 down to 5.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what happens, right? And so I think he did a good job of figuring out who was committed to be on the team. And of course, for me, I never got to experience that because I was playing football at the time. But to go back and see the commitment of the kids and watch them do it, and then be kind of like, they would look at me and go, wow, there's a chance that to be something special, right? And I would always tell the kids, look, your chances of making it to the pros is less than one, less than one, less than one. But I'm here to tell you that it's possible.
It's possible.
As long as you show up early, work hard, get better, have fun, right?
So I want to get to Cal real quick. I want to talk about Cal, even though, I'm a Stanford guy, but we'll talk about Cal, not too.
I have one question before we get to Cal. Yeah. How did they feel about you playing your senior year in basketball in high school? Had you committed to Cal at that point?
No. Interesting story. My senior year at Cal, I was being recruited by Cal and Stanford and Oregon State and Oregon and Utah State, Arizona State, all the military schools. They were on me at that point because they had found out that I played pretty good football.
Yeah.
I had a good motor, they would say, great work ethic, things like that. But Joe Cap came to one of my games, and it was a ugly game versus Tam, which we pulled out in the end. And he came into the locker room after, and he just said, gentlemen, a win is a win is a win. And I think some of the teammates still tell that story, but that's kind of how it started for me. That was really the idea that, wow, this guy came to my town, to my game, and they offered me a scholarship. And one of his things that he wanted to do is he wanted to recruit from his backyard. He didn't want to have to go all over the country and get people. He thought we had great athletes right here in California.
Protect the turf.
Yeah, and so that's what he did. And fortunately for me, his offensive line coach, Bill Lavaroni, had come to my football games, had watched me play. Another gentleman by the name of Denny Schneider had watched me play. And then my defensive line coach, Rod Marinelli, he got a good look at me.
Still coaching the NFL,
and
right?
Yeah, he just retired actually.
Yeah.
But he's one of the best coaches I've ever had.
Yeah.
And his track record speaks for itself, being not only a Rose Bowl winner, but a Super Bowl winner, and head coach at Detroit there for a minute, and then around the league as a defensive coordinator. He's just one of the most brilliant defensive minds out there. And as far as defensive line coaches go, he's one of the best ever. So I was really lucky to have that at Cal.
So you played for Joe Cap, obviously legendary, NFL player, and then a great coach, and then Bruce Snyder.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned Marinelli. We talked about Positive Coaching Alliance in high school. So in college now, this is more of a business. What are their coaching styles like? I mean, you can start with Cap.
Well, Joe Cap was a great motivator.
Right.
He knew fiery is a great word. Yeah. He knew how to crank it up and really get you going. He was dubbed the toughest Chicano in the NFL, something like that. I mean, he's one of those guys that, I guess he played in the Super Bowl, the Grey Cup, and the Rose Bowl, and lost all three.
Yes.
Right.
So he had a chip on his shoulder.
A little chip on his shoulder. Right. Yeah. So yeah, he was. I love Joe Cap. He gave me a chance to play at the next level. He just recently passed away in the last year, and his services were fantastic. All of his accolades and memorabilia were out for people to see. So it was really nice to see that. But he gave a lot of kids locally a chance, which was a big deal.
That's great.
Yeah. And so his coaching style, again, fiery, a great motivator, held us accountable.
Yeah.
I think at that time we weren't that good as a team, only because we had, maybe not the best offensive coordinator at the time, or we didn't have the right parts and pieces in the right place. But we always had a good defense.
Yeah.
I felt like our defense was pretty strong, at least from my perspective. I watched some of the older guys play and go on and play somewhere else. But yeah, it was a great experience to be not only recruited by Cal, but then to be there for, was it 3 years under Joe Cap? So, redshirt the freshman year, and then play redshirt freshman year, or redshirt the freshman year, then play the next year, and then the sophomore year under him, and then junior and senior year under Bruce Snyder.
And Snyder, different style?
Snyder, if you looked at his tenure in where he was a no BS, chop, by the numbers guy.
Yeah.
He didn't do a lot of yelling in terms of his own style. He set the expectation bar super high. I mean, we had to do these drills called mat drills And the conditioning was, I mean, it was next level. I don't think anybody had ever seen it before.
Yeah.
Different stations, different things. And if you didn't do it right, I mean, you guys know lines are important,
Yeah.
right? Especially in basketball.
Right.
Football too, as we saw in that first game of the year, lines are important.
Yes.
Get that toe over the line, right?
Yep.
So this thing was the same. You had to be behind the line. You had to run through the line. And if you didn't, or any of your group didn't, you go back and do it again.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of drills that like blow your mind. You go until you drop because you have to.
Yeah.
Right. It's really tough. And then you're doing plyometrics after that. And then you're doing some other drill after that.
Yeah.
It's a really tough situation, but he set the bar very, very high, and it was higher than we'd ever been set before in the practices. And
Yeah.
I think that elevated the level of play, which I didn't get the benefit of seeing, but the teams after me did.
Yeah. He had success.
He had
for
great
sure.
success and he had great players, which reminds me of those drills. I think one of the questions that you ask sometimes is like, what were the toughest drills in high school?
Yeah.
We had this post-up drill that, the four guys on the outside get to throw the ball around, and you as the post player have to run and seal and go.
Yeah.
And I would be like, just throw the ball over there because I'm already here. Instead, I got to go run to the ball and then fight my way to posting up. And, my junior year, we had a kind of an assistant. Who was an assistant? And my junior year, I think Vince Lentini was helping us out. He was a baseball player who also was with Bret. Super tough guy.
Yeah.
And he beat us up. It was awesome. He really taught us how to play the post hard.
It's great.
We also, like most teams, we do the deny drill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think somebody,
Knockdown drill.
yeah, that was just brutal, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to be first in that one. But for me, the most memorable drill that we did with Bret was the 3-man weave, right?
Yeah.
And one day I think it was, I can't remember what day it was exactly, but it was a practice. We ran that drill and we were not focused, number one, missing the shot, number two. And Bret literally took a ball. One of the only times I've ever seen him upset. He took a ball and he threw it against the concrete wall and said, "That's it. Practice is over. Get out." And that was in the first 10 minutes of practice.
Wow.
So we as a team kind of got together after that, and we went to one of our teammates' house and had some refreshments and pool time and had a little fun. And we came out the next game against San Marin and played one of our best games. So whatever he did or what he wanted to do, it worked because it got us either more focused or more together. It did something to us, and we actually played one of our best games ever.
Do you think that was premeditated in the sense that he kind of maybe saw that, sort of trend of a kind of sloppy early practice, and in his mind, he's like, if I see it again, this is what I'm doing? Or do you think it was just spur of the moment?
I'm not sure. I would say that there was definitely, Bret sometimes says things like, this is the year he learned how to coach. And he mentions my name in particular because I was really kind of that no bullshit player, BS player, I should say, on the court, that I would get in someone's face and tell them, you're not working hard enough. You're not doing this. We got to do this. I would really take a little bit of initiative on that.
Yeah.
And I think that transitioned into him at some point saying, I don't have to put up with this. They're not doing what they need to do. They're not focused. They're laughing out there. They're dropping the ball. We need to get serious out here. This is practice, right? Plenty of time to mess around after practice, but during practice, you got to lock in. So maybe something like that started to grow on him a little bit, and he took it and ran with it. And I mean, it worked for us. I mean, it literally, he shocked us so much that we actually all had to get together and figure out, we can't let that happen again. We got to do better. We can do better. And by the way, the next game, we're going to go out and we're going to, thump his best friend, Paul Faribuff, up at San Marin. And we were lucky we did. He put it together and had a great game.
Yeah.
So it's a legendary story amongst my teammates that, that happened because it only happened once. Right.
So my high school coach, Jonas Honig, always talked about having a feel for the game. Like the players just have a feel for what's going on. And I've noticed that the coaches that have a feel for their team, just like that, is a perfect example, right? This is what you guys needed at that moment. He could have slogged through and made you guys practice for 90 minutes and it would have sucked. But he just had a feel that, you know what, it's time to cut it short. That's great. Speaking of having a feel, I saw somewhere, I think it was on your Wikipedia page, but Marinelli, your coach, described you as talent level of like a B, but effort and competitiveness, we'll round up to B, not to
B minus.
B minus.
B minus.
But competitiveness and attitude and effort of A plus, and that's how you made it. So in college, we talked about how in high school, kind of junior year, starting to get some looks. So college, at what point is the NFL a real possibility for you?
Yeah, so my redshirt freshman year, I played quite a bit. I didn't start, but I played quite a bit. And then my sophomore year, the coaching staff, along with Rod Marinelli's recommendation, moved the starting defensive end, Doug Riesenberg, who is a 12, 13-year pro.
Yeah, he played in the pros for sure.
They moved him to offensive tackle, right? Which is where he went to the pros. He played offensive tackle. He played for many years for the Giants. He's got a bunch of Super Bowl rings and all that.
Yeah.
And they let a redshirt sophomore, who was 230 pounds, start at left end. And that was it. And after that year, and I mean, let's be clear, 6'3.5", 230, playing left defensive end in the Pac-10 is probably not the best thing for the team. But I held my own, played against some really good players, got better the whole year. I think our defense was great because we had guys like, Hardy Nickerson behind us, who
great linebacker,
16-year NFL player, who's just an amazing football player and a great guy. On top of that, a great leader. But they let me do it, and that's where it started. And I think after that year, I was like, wait a minute, I'm a starting defensive end, defensive tackle in the Pac-10. Now there's this tiny little light at the end of the tunnel that I'm looking at going, wow, you might have a chance here if you can keep doing this and get better every year. And that's what Rod would tell me. He goes, look, you're just starting out.
Yeah.
You got a lot to learn. You're going to grow. You're going to get better. You're going to grow into a leader, things like that. That's how he coached me. He really put it out in front of me in terms of these are the possibilities for you, but it doesn't just happen. You got to do the work. So of course, what was I good at? I was good at showing up and working hard, man. And we did. We worked very hard over there. Long days in the weight room, long days on the field. I remember saying things like, we're training pretty hard out there, coach. I think we're doing a good job. He goes, it's not good enough. You got to train harder, right? You got to train harder than anyone in the whole country if you want to be great. Right? Okay. What does that look like, right? And so I'm out there, me, Hardy Nickerson, Ken Harvey, Steve Hendrickson.
Yeah.
And we're doing it. We're training super hard and we're getting better every day. And I think that's the key, was like, there's not this explosive growth. It's more like every day you do stuff to get better.
What was it like for you to play in a college stadium in front of, 30, 40,000 people when you're coming from San Rafael High playing in front of 700 people?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like it. It's amazing. When you make a play or you look up in the stands and you just see the amount of energy and noise and fans, it's incredible. I mean, for people to buy into going to a game and to be that passionate about the outcome and the team and the players, it's truly amazing. And you feel it, right? I remember we were playing against Stanford, I think it was my one year there, and
I'm sure we beat you.
Yeah, we only get, a quarter of the stadium. The rest of it's all red and white, which I'm accustomed to at San Rafael High, right? So we got red and white and blue and gold. And I remember we had sacked John Pay in the end zone on this great, crazy play. And when I looked up, the entire sea of blue and gold was bouncing up and down. It was so loud. And it was awesome. And Memorial Stadium, it's one of the most beautiful places there is
incredible.
In the country.
Beautiful.
So those games, my sophomore year and my senior year, we had really good big games, right? Myself in particular had played well in both those games.
I'll forgive you.
Yeah, well, I root for Stanford, except when they played Cal.
Hey, speaking of big game, all right, Duffy, I apologize. This is a self-serving question.
I saw it in there, yeah.
My Stanford Cardinal, our current coach is Troy Taylor.
Yes.
He was a quarterback on the team when you were there. Give me some insight into Troy.
Troy is a fantastic coach. Super smart.
Yeah.
Always had a very high football IQ, great leader. He was a 4-year player at Cal.
Yeah.
And then went on and played a little bit in the league, I think.
He did.
And then came back and coached. He's had an incredible coaching career up until this year at Stanford. So I expect him to do great things. Again, I'll root for him every day of the week, except for when they're playing Cal. And he's a competitor, right?
Yes.
He's got great football IQ. He's got a great feel for, I think, the other coaches. I've talked to some of the coaches that he coaches with in his previous teams, and they all say the same thing. He's just really solid. Again, sets high expectations, which maybe he got that from Bruce Snyder. right? High expectations for his teams. And this is the way we're going to play. This is the way we're going to be.
That's great. Thank you for that. Thank you. Sorry. Tangent done. But it's interesting because we're so used to basketball, right? Where you have a team of 10 to 15 players, right? In football, you've got 50-ish guys, right? I don't know what the rosters are in college, might be bigger. So I would assume being a head coach of a football team, you're almost like the CEO of an organization. You know, you got to manage your coaches as much as you got to manage the players, right? Because you can't. It seems almost impossible to have a really deep connection with every player on your roster. There's too many players, right?
I agree. I think a head coach needs to be a CEO and needs to be a leader for sure.
Yeah.
I think that some head coaches, like Troy, they have certain things that they're really good at, like offense.
Right.
Right. Then there are those coaches who are really good at managing other coaches. I think no matter what you're doing, if you're a head coach, you got to manage other coaches regardless. But there's a way to do that, right? Because those coaches need to hold their players accountable.
Yeah.
So stepping over them to go do something is probably not the right thing to do. It's more like, how do you mentor and make suggestions positively to your position coach so that the position coach can then put that on the players?
Yeah.
Again, I think, when you're the CEO or when you're the head coach, regardless of what sport it is, you're setting the tone, right? You're setting the vision, you're setting the direction, you're holding everyone accountable at a certain level, but you're setting the expectations.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do.
I'm just trying to think, you see head coaches that will call the offensive plays or head coaches that will call the defensive plays, like at college and pro, whatever. I don't think I've ever seen a coach that would do both, right? Is that even possible to be? I suppose it's practically possible, but probably not very effective.
Yeah, I don't think it's very effective. I think you've got people in certain positions for a reason, right? Most head coaches have a great defensive mind running the defense.
Yeah.
And if you're a defensive head coach, then you've got a great offensive mind running the offense.
Yeah.
Right. So let's look at Robert Saleh, right? He's got his hands on the defense, but he's also making sure his offensive coordinator is doing what he wants him to do.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is a good segue into, I want to hit on NFL. I mean, how could we not talk about your NFL experience? So let's talk about coaches. You played for Sam Weish for the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Played in a couple Super Bowls. Weish did. Tom Flores, legend for the Seahawks. Jim Mora for the Saints, and then Jeff Fisher for the Oilers, right?
Yep.
So you get to the NFL. Discuss that transition from college to the NFL, and then specifically how you dealt with, like, what's the coaching style like of a Sam Weish compared to, a Snyder or a Cap?
Yeah, so the transition, I think, from every level is the fact that the game gets faster.
Yeah.
And not just some people fast, but everybody's fast, right? And you're a rookie, 22, 23, and there's guys out there that have been playing for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years.
Yeah.
You're playing against some seasoned people, right? So there's a whole dynamic there that you have to be cognizant of how you're going to perform and how you're going to do it and what's going to happen, because the older guys, they look at you like, you're just a rookie. I mean, literally, you're just a rookie.
Yeah.
And when I say rookie, I mean they don't care about you one bit.
Are you carrying bags in the airport and doing all that kind of stuff, or?
Yeah, I think there's some occasion of that, but I think that's more of the joking side at the time.
Yeah.
All those hazing things and all that. It all happens and you get through it, but your play speaks for itself, right?
Right.
When you're working hard and you're being part of the team, you can overcome a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of coaching style, Sam Weish, he's part of the Bill Walsh tree,
yes.
Right? So super smart when it comes to offense. He had a great personality, super funny.
Yeah.
He was a jokester. He could laugh with the players, but he could also turn the dime and hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Especially when you weren't playing well. And if you remember back then, they had a 4-and-something season. And then the following year they came back, went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's a huge transition to do that with relatively the same player.
Lost to the Niners, right?
Right. Yeah. And they lost to the Niners in the last second throw from, I think it was 34 seconds left to go. Montana back to pass.
Yeah.
Montana to Taylor for the touchdown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We all watched, if you're a kid, you all watched it here.
Of course.
And it was incredible. And what's funny about that game is I get drafted by the Bengals, 158th draft, which is the second to last pick of the 5th round.
5th round. Okay.
And I've been watching guys get drafted before me. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta be better than that guy. What's going on here?
Yeah.
But I get drafted by the Bengals. I go out there for mini camp. I walk in. I meet Sam Weish. I meet Chuck Studley, who's a defensive line coach, who also was at the Niners for a little bit. And lo and behold, I meet Tim Crumry, who broke his leg in the Super Bowl.
right.
I still have
Right. One of the worst
the
injuries
image.
anybody's ever seen
Yeah.
on live TV next to
Theismann. Harrowing image. Crumry's leg.
Same thing. Right.
Alex Smith, yeah.
So here I am. I'm in minicamp, and he's on crutches with a 22-inch rod in his leg and pins going up and down. And he's just crutching around, smiling and doing his thing. And, I thought, wow, is this guy going to make it back? I don't know. But, I'm on the team and I'm trying to make the team. And at the end of the day, when I get to training camp, which is another couple of months later, he's my roommate. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's 2 months, 3 months, maybe, April to July there. And I thought I was tough, really.
Yeah.
High school,
Sure.
obviously I was like, I'm tough. And, college, I'm super tough. So going to the pros, I'm going to be tough, right? I'm going to do all the mentally tough, physically tough. I'm a tough guy. And then I met Tim Crumry.
Yeah.
And I thought I was tough. That guy is tough, right? 10th round pick out of Wisconsin, makes the team, holds all the records for tackles all over the field as an undersized nose guard. I watched him in training camp go through the workouts with a 22-inch rod in his leg and a thigh pad over one spot. I watched him go work out and come back and be in tears in the dorm room because it hurt so bad.
Yeah.
And he ends up starting the first game of the next season. Wow. And of course, they played him a little sparingly along the way. But to go through that whole process of having a really nasty break, having to put a piece of metal in your leg to keep it together, and then having to do all the drills to pass the physical to get back on the field, and to watch him go through the suffering of that, I mean, he's one of the toughest people I've ever met. It was incredible what he did. And then to play with him, it was fantastic to play with him. Great leader. And I'm actually going out there in a couple of weeks for the Ring of Honor celebration where he's going to get his name put up on the Ring of Honor.
Awesome.
Which is really nice. So, yeah. So, again, going back to the coaching, Sam Weish, funny guy, super smart. He ran the hurry up offense, right?
Of course.
Back then, he was the first one to do it.
Yeah.
Boomer Esiason and the boys. So he's very talented. And I think he passed away a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah.
So, and then we had Flores, right? So Flores, the general, right? Very soft spoken, never yelled.
Longtime Raider coach.
Long time. I watched him on the Raider sidelines for many years. The Raiders were one of my favorite teams growing up until they left. And then it was the Niners, right? And he's got that. So we got the 80s Raiders. We got the 90s Niners.
Yeah.
So the Tom Flores era at Seattle was I think short-lived a little bit, but for me it was awesome. I had him for 2 years. Complete general, right? Kind of like the Tom Landry of it all, right?
Yeah.
He was the head coach. Everybody else around him did the coaching.
Okay.
He would point some things out. He'd walk around. He's just that guy.
CEO.
Yep. And I mean, when you grow up watching that guy do what he did, he commands immediate respect, right? And so it was fantastic having him as a coach and getting to know him better. And at Seattle, we had an incredible defense, right? I mean, Seattle, I played with
Easley.
Well, Kenny Easley was there before me.
Oh, okay.
And he wasn't there when I was there, but I played with Cortez Kennedy, Hall of Famer.
Of course.
And then the linemen who were up front, Joe Nash, Jeff Bryant, and myself. And I think Joe Nash, Jeff Bryant, and Jacob Green are the three longest tenured defensive line team in the history of NFL, like 10 or 12 year tenure, something like that.
Wow.
But I joined a great defense. I mean, we had Dave Wyman from Stanford was our linebacker. We had Eugene Robinson was our safety. We had some really good players. Rufus Porter coming off the end.
And were you playing in the Kingdome?
Playing in the Kingdome.
So what was that surface like?
It was hard.
Concrete.
Yeah. Carpet over concrete.
Floor burn.
Yeah, carpet over concrete, plenty of burns to go with it. If anybody knows what AstroTurf was, it's all it was just a little carpet over concrete.
This film over rock.
It was terrible. And the baseball fields are even better because wherever the bases were, the field was like, it was moldy and it would just move, right? The dirt, if it was ever raining, anywhere with those kind of fields, the rain would go into the seams of the bases and then the dirt would come out and then it was super slick in those areas. I mean, it's crazy. But that's back in the day.
Yeah.
Right? But much better now.
So you played 6 years in the league. What was the toll like on your body?
Well, I did a pretty good job of staying healthy. I never had any really major injuries, sprained my knee, bent a few fingers in the wrong direction, things like that.
Yeah.
No concussions.
Well, when it comes to concussions, I don't really remember. So
Did you get your bell rung a couple times?
There's always that out there. I felt like, I did more ringing of other bells than I
Right.
did myself. But I think that's because when you're a defensive player, you're really doing a lot of the hitting as opposed to getting hit. I mean, I feel for the receiver going over the middle. That's a tough one,
Yeah.
right? Or the vulnerable quarterback that gets hit from behind, something like that.
Sure.
So I think for me, I was very lucky. No major injuries, but you still come away with some things. So for me, my NFL experience has been I have got a couple shoulders that hurt me from time to time, but everything else, I think I'm in pretty good shape. I got out of it right when I needed to. The salary cap kind of got in the way there, but that's okay. I look back on it now as kind of probably a good message that it's time to get out and move on and not get really hurt.
All right. Favorite sacks, favorite quarterbacks you took down.
Oh, Montana. Come on. Second
Got
Joe
Joe?
Montana. Second Joe Montana is probably the highlight of my career. Between Montana and John Elway, Tommy Kramer,
Yeah.
Randall Cunningham. I mean, one of the games we played in Seattle, we sacked Randall Cunningham 10 times and they still beat us. Right? That's kind of athlete.
He was a
that
big
guy was.
dude, right?
Oh, he was a big dude. Great quarterback. Great athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of remember that Seattle team with Dave Craig was the quarterback for a period of that time. There were a lot of like 9 to 7 games,
Yeah.
right? But question for you, of these quarterbacks you sacked, did any of them say anything to you in that moment afterwards? Like,
Nice play, Natu.
good job, kid.
No, they're pretty focused on getting to the next play.
Yeah.
Right. Or they're yelling at their offensive line.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember quite succinctly that after I sacked Joe Montana the second time, they were all yelling at Bubba Paris. Bubba, you gotta block that guy, And so
Yeah.
it's pretty funny.
That's
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Real quick, just to close the loop on coaches. So Mora and Fisher, anything notable about those guys?
So Jim Moore is all business,
Yes.
and what you see is what you get.
Playoffs.
Yep. No BS with that guy. He
Yeah.
was pretty chop. He was also a pretty good general. He held his position coaches pretty accountable.
Yeah.
But as far as interacting with players, he was a no-nonsense guy, right? If he was talking to you, you were listening, and you were like, "Okay, coach, right? I got you. We'll get it done." And it's in New Orleans there, that was the year that Jim Everett was traded to the New Orleans, right?
Yep.
And so he was the leader of that team, and I got to play with those guys, through the mini camp, through training camp, through the preseason, and then I was waived. I got cut right at the end. I was on the team at noon, and at 2:30 I was off the team.
Wow.
And I thought they were trading for a guy by the name of, I think, Willie Broughton from the Oakland Raiders. So I thought, wow, this is great. I get to go back to Oakland at home.
But you got cut.
Only they didn't trade me. They traded for a draft pick. And so I had to go home. And I actually waited around a couple weeks.
And then you got picked up by Houston.
And then I got picked up by Houston a couple weeks later. And I think it was because Ray Childress got hurt.
Yep.
So then they brought me in, and I finished out the year there. And again, I ended that career. One of my Cal teammates, Steve Hendrickson, was on that team as well. So we both got to play together there at the end, which was fun. And then, that was it. Come back home and raise a family, right?
Awesome. Well, go ahead, Duff.
During your 6 years in the pros, what are you doing for fun outside of football? Are you playing any basketball during this time period? Are there pickup games amongst the NFL players? Is that something that would be condoned?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I would say that probably not. During the season, there's no other activities going on other than going to the movies, right? And trying to watch movies and just watch film, watch movies, take your mind off of it. Going out on the town, of course, if you're an NFL player, that was always something that you did that was fun. You practiced, pretty hard on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So Thursday nights were a good time to go out. Fridays were pretty light.
Yeah.
Saturdays were walkthroughs. You played on Sundays. You gas off on Monday and you get Tuesday off. So it's a pretty good routine, and it's 6 months long. And then when it's over, you have some choices to make, right? You can stay in the town that you're playing in and continue to be part of that town and work out there, or you can come home. And I came home every year that I was away. And when I was here, I would work out at Cal. I would play basketball at Cal with some of the guys, pick up games.
Yeah.
I played basketball at the YMCA, pick up games, and just made a lot of fun of it.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think, I love football so much, right? But I also love basketball because I wasn't any good at basketball for a long time. And slowly but surely, I got better and better and better. And even after playing, professional football, I continued to get better at playing basketball with all the pickup games. I mean, we had Tovani ball, we had the YMCA ball, we had Drake, in the gym Drake, not the outside court,
Right.
which was awesome to
Mhm.
play. And so you had your pick. You could play 4, 5, 6 times a week and really get some good basketball in. And the thing that I like the most is, in some cases, you're playing with people that actually know how to play basketball. Great basketball IQ. Like if
Yeah.
you're playing at Drake, everyone on that court knows how to play.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're playing at the Y, you're directing some traffic out there. But sometimes you get a couple guys on the same team. Like if I've got Duffy on my team, I know where to throw the ball.
Right.
Right. I don't care where I get it. If I get it to him, we're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. He's going to make that jumper.
That's right.
So pretty fun. And I think that the basketball for me is definitely a passion. I love playing basketball. I'm hoping to play more of it even now in my late 50s.
Yeah.
You guys probably don't know this, but you guys were tracking, Kearns and all his stuff.
Yeah.
So I just got my valve replaced 12 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I feel fantastic.
Good
And
for you.
and I would say to anybody out there that's listening and that you guys know, go get checked up.
Yeah.
Right. Get your stuff checked. Do it when you're 45, start early.
Yeah.
Check it every year. And when I was 50, my doctor said, "Hey, you've got something going on here." And so we've been watching it for a while. And when it came time to do something, we did it, and it's great.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I feel very happy and lucky that we have this incredible Western medicine here, and UCSF did a great job for me. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
those
Yeah, you
folks out
look
there,
great. You look
look
fit.
amazing.
Yeah, you look like
Thank
you're
you.
in great
Don't
shape.
want to guard you in the post. All right, Natu.
Dave, before you're getting to crunch time,
I'm getting to crunch
all
time.
right, I want one more question before.
Duffy, I will
Okay.
allow it.
Just, quickly, playing basketball, did it make you better as a football player in any way? And then I'm sure football made you better at basketball, but maybe just tell us like how positioning, besides just being strong, but just, the footwork, leverage, all those things, how did that make you better as a basketball player?
I think basketball does a couple of things for you as a football player. Number one, it gives you great hand-eye coordination in terms of things you have to do with the ball. It gives you great footwork because you have to learn how to do footwork in basketball. It just doesn't come, for some people it might be natural, but for most people they have to work on it. And I think football is key. I think the techniques that you learn in basketball are always evolving and getting better. And so if you can imagine learning technique on the basketball court and then learning technique on the football field, because football field is a lot of technique, especially if you're a defensive line. It's almost all technique because you're smaller, faster against bigger, stronger. How do you make that happen? Right. So it's a lot of, dip, rip, swat, and spin. It's a lot of hand placement. It's a lot of steps, the right steps. You can't overstep because you get knocked off balance. You got to take short steps sometimes. So a lot of that footwork help. But I think being a better athlete, a well-rounded athlete, is the key. And basketball can do that because there's so many things you have to do in basketball. Not only do you have to run, not only do you have to sprint sometimes, you have a lot of lateral movement that has to happen, right? And you've got to pick and choose sometimes the times where you're going and not going, right? Depending upon what the other players are doing in front of you. You can't just go to the rack with the guy standing in front of you, right? You've got to make a move. You've got to jump stop, and you've got to dish, and you've got to make a pass, or you got to go all the way to the rack and go over somebody and do that. And think about the defensive side of basketball. You can't just stand there and expect the ball's going to land in your lap, right? You have to search out someone, box them out, and keep them from getting to the ball.
Yeah.
Those box out drills are the best, by the way, right?
For sure.
Kicking and scratching to get to that ball. So yeah, I believe that basketball really helped me be a better athlete overall, which in turn made me a better football player. And I think in today's world with these kids, a lot of kids are, they start out as, 3 or 4 sports, and then they get down to 3, and then they get down to 2, and then they specialize in the 1. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but it's unfortunate that kids have to do that in order to compete at their highest level at whatever sport they pick. It would be much nicer if kids could play 3 sports still and still do the club thing and still get recruited, et cetera, et cetera. I think well-rounded athletes make a much better sense for the youth. And I also think it helps with injury prevention and wellness because doing one thing all the time every day is not always good.
Totally agree.
So, and in terms of football, being aggressive on the basketball court, it's important, right? Basketball is a contact sport.
For sure.
People don't always say that, but it is. You got to be aggressive. You got to be able to hold someone off. You got to be able to fight through a screen. You got to be able to win the post, right? And then sometimes you just got to lock it down and play some D, right? So it's important to know how to do that. And it doesn't just get turned on or off. It takes a long time to really learn how to do that and to be consistent at it.
And the big advantage is that the person who initiates the contact first, right?
So I was just going to say our good friend Tom Poser, who's a great coach, great player. We were just coaching together this past weekend, and he always talks about hunting contact on the basketball court, that, often players tend to try to avoid contact. Like when they're going in for a layup, you want to hunt that contact, make contact, create space. That's how you're going to win and compete.
Yeah. And Tom is one of the best players I've seen in Marin.
Yeah.
I mean, I played against him in some Drake League stuff back in the day.
Not too easy. I don't want his head to get too big.
I know. But he's, number one, he's a great guy, right? And he's a great coach. I'm glad he's passing on some of the tutelage to the younger folks.
Yeah.
But I watched him play and played with him and against him.
Yeah.
Great motor, great skills, hard worker. Again, looking for the contact to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it takes sometimes. And sometimes kids don't know that, right? So to have a coach that can explain it
Exactly.
and say, look, this is why it's important.
Right.
We're not just doing it to do it. We're doing it because there's a purpose behind it. That's the best kind of coach.
Great point. The why is really important.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to approach crunch time?
Please, let's take a snack of crunch.
Yes. Here we go. Not to. Favorite gym in Marin?
Oh, the doghouse for sure.
Okay. San Rafael High.
Yeah.
Gym 1 or Gym 2?
Gym 1 for sure, because that's where your parents get to watch, right?
Right.
Gym 2, a close second, because we had a lot of fun in there with the boys learning how to play. And girls. We had a lot of girls that played too, which was great.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Toughest Marin. Let's go basketball here. Toughest Marin players you played against.
Well, Drake, of course, was incredible. So they had Mitchell Pierce was incredible. They had Jeff Daniels. They had Brian Schneider. And they had Mike Hayward as a sophomore. Right. He was, it was between me and him, late in the fourth quarter in the championship game, and they called a foul on me, and I think he was riding my back a little bit, but that was the end of the game. Once that happened, we were done.
2 Pac-10 guys going up against.
Yeah, but some great players there. We had, Dave Tarantino from San Marin was fantastic. We had Coyle Hardy from TAM was great.
Yeah.
We had, Kurt Eggers and Curtis White from Redwood were good. Rick Simmons and Moskowitz from Terra Linda. Those were all good players. So yeah, we ourselves, like I said, we had Andy Salvis. He was one of the best players in the league. Great shot, long, could dunk. He was dunking in high school. It's pretty cool, right?
How about toughest Marin players you played against in football?
Marin Catholic had Gaten and Garcia as a lineman. Obviously playing against Brad Muster,
Stanford,
any of the
Chicago Bears.
Yeah, Brad and his brother Kurt was always good.
Yeah.
And then, the guys that I played with that Pop Warner year, they were the best players in the league. So, Bobby Voles, Glenn Richardson, Britt Johnson, Kip Hawkes, Eric Hoff from Drake, and Jerry Zeef, another great player who didn't get a chance to go on because of an injury in a car accident. But these are some great, great players that I thought were like, wow, they've done an incredible job, not just when we played together, but as they grew up through their own high school transitions, they still were fantastic as seniors.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite college stadium you played in?
Oh, Cal Memorial Stadium for sure. And if you were going to say away, I would say I'd have to say probably Arizona or Arizona State, only because the fields are grass, right? And they're fat, that Bermuda shortcut grass, really fast. And you always played at night. Now we didn't have much success, but those were good stadiums to play in.
How about
farthest stadium away? I think we played at Boston College one year. That was pretty good. It was fun.
Was that Flutie or was that after Flutie?
I think it was after Flutie.
Okay, after Doug. Yeah. All right. How about your favorite NFL stadium to play in?
Favorite NFL stadium to play in? Again, I would say it would be the grass situation. So Miami was a great place to play.
Is that Joe Robbie back then?
Yep, Joe Robbie. And the LA Anaheim Stadium was shortcut grass as well. And then, of course, the teams that you play for, right? You have to really think about, Riverfront, was a great stadium because it was loud. Cincinnati. And, the crowds were great there. They played great music, right? Welcome to the Jungle, Guns N' Roses. That was always good. But then, you think about other things like the Kingdome, right? Monday night in the Kingdome versus Denver. Loud, super loud, right? And now their stadium, Lumen Field. I was just there last weekend for a kind of a Seahawks reunion weekend. And I mean, the way they built that stadium, they built it for the noise, and it was so loud. It's like a jet engine going off.
Well, when Taylor Swift played there, it was a seismic event.
Yeah.
Like they literally, it was an earthquake because it was so loud.
Yeah, it was incredible. So I think, those stadiums for me, were great places to play.
That's great. This is a little adjunct to crunch time, but when you left Cal and went to Cincinnati, so that was like, you think you grew up here, you went to Cal, so that was kind of your first time away from home, right? Was that a shock to you? Or like, how was Cincinnati as a city for you?
I think as a city, it's pretty good in terms of it's a very family-oriented, conservative community.
Yeah.
Right. The weather, on the other hand, is very suspect because it could change on a dime. One minute it could be raining, and the next minute it's sunny and it's hot and humid, or it's got a snow flurry, and then the field's frozen over, and then it melts, and then you're out there practicing.
Right.
It changes all over the place. And back then, our facility was called Spinney Field, I believe, and it was right next to Queen City Barrel. So you were practicing outside with the smell of galvanized iron, in the air.
Lovely.
It reminded me of the back of the days at Davidson Middle School when the roofing company would have all their tar smoke coming out of the
A very distinctive smell.
I had my St. Sylvester's practices at Davidson. Okay, last crunch time question, Natu. Favorite Marin restaurant?
Favorite Marin restaurant? Well, interestingly enough, I spent a lot of time at San Rafael Joe's because...
Love it.
Could have guessed it.
What's that?
Could have guessed it.
Yep.
Yeah. And part of that is because it's a great family place.
Yeah.
And, we recently just lost our grandma, Linda Woods, and one of our favorite places to go with her and the family. And so it's a great family place, a lot of birthdays there, and now funerals, of course. But yeah, they do such a great job down there. And they're big supporters of the Marin Athletic Foundation.
Absolutely.
And of the community. So yeah, they get my number one vote. And there are other great restaurants in Marin, of course, but I give them the number one vote.
Love it.
I've got a bonus
Please,
crunch
go,
time
Gal.
question.
Do it.
We were going to talk about, we heard from Jet that you're an avid reader.
Yeah.
And so bonus crunch time question, a book recommendation, maybe since you're on the board of education for the kids out there, for the high schoolers to read out there.
Wow.
Don't say Lord of the Flies.
No. I think one of the books I've read, Good to Great, is a great book for people to read.
Great book.
Trying to find the right seat on the bus for people. The Energy Bus is another good book. These are all kind of self-help, get to know yourself and do things. I just finished Treasure Island for the second time.
Nice.
Wonderful book. So,
Yeah.
But I've read some really interesting, inspiring pieces of literature in the last year or two, especially when you're recovering from heart surgery, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. The list is pretty long. As an example, I just read a book. It's about the invasion at Normandy, and to really understand what our troops went through in the 2 years prior to landing on D-Day, and then the day of D-Day, and what a complete crazy show it was on that day. I think everyone in America should really read something that has to do with Normandy and the landing at Omaha Beach and Utah Beach, and really understand what it was like for those young men who just jumped out of planes into nowhere, and who jumped on a beach and nearly drowned on their way in. And if they made it up the beach, they were lucky. It's just an amazing thing to understand where would you be if we didn't have that sacrifice of men back then, and how the world would be so different, right? So I'm really appreciative. I think you appreciate things a lot more once you read things like that.
Puts it all in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really does put it in perspective that, people sacrifice their lives for the freedom to do things in this country, like have a podcast to talk about basketball, right?
Absolutely.
And it's important that, I think for me, it's always important to reflect on those things, because if you don't, then you don't really get it, right? You don't really understand what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I think it helps me want to be of service. It helps me want to be, to do the right things. And that's why, giving back to the community for me has been such an important thing, because I was able to have great teachers, great coaches, a very supportive family.
Yeah.
A lot of things went my way, right? And I think it all was helped by the hard work that we put in, along the way, and the team, right? It always came back to the team. I mean, you can talk about yourself a lot about things. Oh, I did this, I did that, but really, it comes down to the team every time. It doesn't matter what I did personally. It's more about what did the team do and how did the team accomplish it.
Right.
And everything that I've done has been very team oriented. And I think myself as a small part of that, part of the solution by setting, whether it's a tone, an attitude, a way of doing it. And I think it started in high school. We definitely changed the way we worked in high school based on some of the things that we set as our expectations, right? Show up early, right? Work hard, get better, have fun. And I get that, from my coaching, which is, I get that from, Mike Dibley, who I coached CYO basketball with, right? That was kind of our thing. And he did a good job of setting the table for that. So a lot of John Wooden stuff there, right?
Great words. Natu, can't thank you enough for the time. We could spend another 2 hours with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This has been awesome.
Fantastic.
You're an inspiration, and we appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. You guys do a great job. Keep it up. I'm looking forward to listening to many more pods, as they say. You guys do such a great job. And again, first one in Marin, right? So keep it going.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
bud. Appreciate it.
Burke's on his feet. He looks up and gives me a grin and says, "Hey dude, you too must be from Marin."